From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Nwawodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, U.S. President Joe Biden commends President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his efforts at preserving the rule of law and democracy in Niger Republic. Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara vows to capture killers of a divisional police officer, Bako Bashim, in the state. 26 persons are dead in Sunday's boat mishap in Mokwa, Niger State, as Governor Umaru Bago warns against overcrowding of boats. And death toll from Friday's earthquake in Morocco is now more than 2,000 in the country's strongest quake in more than a century. Statement by the U.S. mission in Nigeria, President Joe Biden gave the commendation when he met with President Tinubu on the sign of their relationship and to long-lasting friendship between both countries. The statement reads in part, and it drive local. According to a statement from the president's spokesman, Ajurin Gelale, President Tinubu had a meeting with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, where he presented a communique and unique opportunity to expand ties of prosperity for the people of Nigeria, but with a pragmatic approach towards ensuring the effective execution of agreements struck. Following President Tinubu's acceptance of the German Chancellor's request to visit, the president proceeded to sit down with the leader of Asia's fourth largest economy, South Korea, during which South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol commended him and his regional leadership in upholding democratic tenets and norms. President Tinubu shared his economic focus as he immediately advanced proposals for an enhanced South Korean presence in Nigeria's local manufacturing sector, while the South Korean president responded in agreement, promising to mobilize his business community to take advantage of new Nigerian incentives for education, technology, and energy sectors. President Tinubu also met with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, drawing attention to the opportunities between the two nations across all sectors, like agricultural development, ICT innovation, and the emergence of blue-chip fintech growth in Africa. Meanwhile, President Tinubu has arrived in the United Arab Emirates, where he is scheduled to meet with the country's leadership during the technical stopover in Abu Dhabi, the UAE. The president is to address the lingering bilateral issues while maximizing the opportunity of a stopover to equally advance his investment promotion objectives with high-level authorities in the public and the private sectors of the United Arab Emirates. In Rivers State, the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has vowed that the suspect who gruesomely murdered a divisional police officer in the state, Bako Bashim, must be brought to book, dead or alive. Governor Fubara gave this commitment shortly after hosting an emergency security summit council at the government house in Port Harcourt this morning. The governor said his administration will not allow Rivers State become a safe haven for criminals. The DPO, Bako Bashim, reputed for his bravery, was brutally murdered and suspected cultist on Friday night while leading a security team in an operation of the Demudia community in Ahoda East local government area of Rivers State.
It's really, really unfortunate that in our dear state, where we're doing everything to reduce crime rates, a group of miscreants will portray the state as being unsafe. We honestly feel very, very sad over this incident. Now, as a government, we sympathize with the Nigerian police force, especially the family of Sabako. But we will not rest until whoever that is responsible for this act is brought to book. We have gone further to show our commitment on this particular issue by placing a bounty on the criminal and also suspended the traditional ruler of that locality. We are doing everything on our part to make sure that this matter will get to the end of it. We must get him dead or alive, because we have to make a statement. River State will never be a home for criminality. I believe that the caliber of men that we have that are heading the security units of this state will do everything within their power to settle and resolve this matter as soon as possible.
And from Rivers State, we head to Taraba State, where the gunmen suspected to be kidnappers have killed one person and abducted 6 others in Mile 6 area of Jalingo in the Taraba State capital in the early hours of today. One person is said to be shot and receiving treatment at an undisclosed hospital. A source from the area told Channels Television that the assailants operated for hours, moving from one house to another. They identified the injured person as a serving police officer who took a leave of his duty post to attend to his health. The source also disclosed that the deceased is the police officer's daughter. According to him, the wife and 2 other children were kidnapped from the house, while 3 other persons were kidnapped from separate houses in the same area. The kidnappers have already contacted the families asking for 50 million naira ransom. Meanwhile, the police public relations officer in Taraba State, Abdullahi Usman, has confirmed the incident, saying the police has already launched an investigation into this incident and commenced combing of forests and nearby mountains to rescue the victims. Meanwhile, the Tinubu Shatima Network Support Group has expressed concern over the rising case of insecurity in the northern region and other parts of Nigeria, with a call to the federal government to step up efforts in addressing the situation. Speaking at a news conference in Kaduna, the national coordinator of the Tinubu Shatima Network, Kilani Mohammed, says the recent attacks in Katsina, Kaduna, Niger, and other states where several people were killed by bandits, including security personnel, is a pointer to the resurgence of banditry in the region. The group is now asking security agencies to map out new strategies to address the various security challenges confronting the nation.
The issue of insecurity is still bothering Nigerians, and I know in our 8-point agenda, security is one of the paramount issues that the government said you want to tackle. But I had a news today in Katsina about they say 60 people were killed, those health workers. Some were rescued. And it seems the bandits are back. So we want local government monies to be released directly to the local government because they are closer to the people, so that they will bring in civilian JTFs, equipment, train them so that they can work in collaboration with our security agencies to bring peace and tranquility in our nation.
At least 26 persons have died, while an unspecified number of others have been missing after a boat capsized in Morocco government area of Niger State in the early hours of today. The actual number of people on board the boat and the cause of the accident is still yet to be confirmed by authorities. Confirming this incident to Channels Television via telephone, the chairman of Mokwa local government area in Niger State, Mr. Jibril Muregi, said the rescue efforts are ongoing and explains that 21 bodies have so far been recovered. Meanwhile, the state governor, Umaru Bago, has expressed shock over this incident. He, however, reiterated the importance of the use of life jackets when boarding a boat and for people to desist from overcrowding these boats. Vice President Kashim Shatima is calling on the Northeast Development Commission, the NEDC, to expand the scope of its interventions in the northeastern region to cover more road projects regardless of their status. Senator Shatima made the call while flagging off the distribution of 15 billion naira worth of food items to governors of that region and the construction of a 22-kilometer road along Mafa in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital.
The groundbreaking event by the Northeast Development Commission, NEDC, coincides with the meeting of the Northeast Governors Forum, which is holding for the first time in 2023 at the Government House in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. Alongside the host governor, Babangana Zulum, and all other governors of the region, the vice president performs the groundbreaking ceremony of a 22.5-kilometer road construction, which will link many communities within Jari and some parts of Mafo local government area. Done with the groundbreaking, the vice president leads other dignitaries to the multi-purpose hall of the government house, where the Northeast governors are hosting their quarterly meeting.
We thank God the Almighty.
The managing director of the Northeast Development Commission delivers his welcome address.
The present economic situation has led to soaring price of food items, heightened food insecurity nationwide. In its national broadcast of 31st July 2023 on the current economic challenges in the country, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced some short and medium-term measures to be taken by the federal government to ease economic hardship being faced in the country.
One after the other, the governors deliver their goodwill messages.
The challenges seem to be endless, but our collective determination to overcome them remain resolute. The very fact that we have been able to identify most of the major challenges facing us as people in this sub-region, there are no doubt in the right directions towards solving these numerous challenges.
The Vice President, Senator Shatima, then makes his remarks.
The Boko Haram inflicted damages in the northeast to the tune of $9 billion. Borno alone had damages worth $6.8 billion. 956,453 units of private houses, making up 30% of the total stock of houses in the state were destroyed by the Boko Haram.
Afterwards, the Vice President leaves Maiduguri for Abuja, where he will take off to Kebbi State to flag off the construction of 1,000 houses across the northwest and north-central states.
The National Assembly Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Kaduna State has upheld the election of Lawal Usman of the People's Democratic Party as senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District. The candidate of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, Muhammad Abdullahi, had filed a petition challenging the election of Usman on 4 grounds. He claimed that Mr. Usman was not nominated by his party in accordance with the Electoral Act and was not properly sponsored by the PDP to contest the election. The APC candidate also challenged the authenticity of his educational qualification, as well as overvoting during the election. However, in the judgment delivered by the 3-man panel led by Justice Hereng, dismissed the petition on the grounds of lack of merit. Justice Hereng, who read the judgment, explained that the petitioners failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the PDP candidate's NECO results and other academic qualifications he presented to the Independent National Electoral Commission were forged. The tribunal further explained that the petitioners could not prove that the first respondent was not duly elected by the majority of the votes cast in February 25th National Assembly election. The tribunal therefore dismissed the petition, upholding the election of Mr. Lawal Usman as PDP of the PDP as a duly elected senator of Kaduna Central Senatorial District. In part 2, after the break, what are the gains for Nigeria from the just concluded G20 summit? Well, Channels Television's data analyst Babajide Ogunsawo has some interesting data to assess that outing. Please join us again.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
Wanna be a villain? I wanna be a villain.
Nigeria, Budweiser is stopping by at Port Harcourt, Uyo, Calabar, Enugu, Asaba, and finally Lagos to uncover Nigeria's next biggest musical talent who will get to perform live on a global stage in Las Vegas. Visit budweiser.com.ng to submit your demo now. T's and C's apply. Budweiser, yours to take. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly.
If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. U.S. President Joe Biden commends President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his efforts at preserving the rule of law and democracy in Niger Republic. Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara vows to capture killers of the divisional police officer Bako Angbashim in the state. 26 persons are dead in Sunday's boat mishap in Mokwa, Niger State, as Governor Maru Bango warns against overcrowding of boats. And death toll from Friday's earthquake in Morocco is now more than 2,000 in the country's strongest quake in more than a century. We turn our attention to infrastructure now, and the Minister of Works, David Umahi, has intimated the Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, on the state of federal roads in Anambra State, where he is recommending concrete pavement over asphalt on the roads. Professor Soludo, who received the minister at the Government House, commended the minister, describing him as a round peg in a round hole, while seeking the intervention of the federal government on the roads. The convoy of the Minister of Works, David Umahi, makes its way into the Anambra State Governor's Lodge, Amobia, where he is received by Governor Chukwuma Soludo. As they settle for a conversation and before briefing on his mission to inspect the state of federal roads, he first recalls the events of the last presidential election and extols Professor Soludo's boldness, describing him as a prophet who has been vindicated.
During the election, this your governor became a prophet, and I was the evangelist. Two of us were very vocal about the success of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Today, he's been vindicated. So I want to thank you, sir, for that courage.
And to the business of the day, the minister frowns at the protracted construction duration of some roads and equally recommends concrete pavement over asphalt, which he says is a major problem.
Many of the places we went and looked at asphalt road, within 2 years, they have all gone. So I continue to say, and my director Southeast agrees with me, that the bitumen being brought into this country is quite adulterated. Before, we don't used to do binder course. We don't used to put a stone base. It's just a base and you put wearing course. And it will last and last. But today we put a stone base, we put binder costs. Even this road, we have 2 binder costs, and then we put wearing costs, and yet the road will fail. The asphalt is the problem. And so, we also introducing to use the concrete pavement. Dangote is doing it in Lagos, and it's very wonderful. In Ikorodu, Shagamu, they are doing it. It's very wonderful.
Governor Soludo says he is happy about Mr. Umahi's appointment, noting that apart from being fair, his competence and capacity to fix Nigerian roads is never in doubt.
When they said appointed him, nominated you for minister, I wish it works. We just wish it works. And then, oh, it works. And we must thank the president immensely. We must thank him. In politics, you don't get what you deserve. Exactly. You get what you bargain for, and you bargain with your votes.
The minister assures the governor that there will be a review of some of the roads to incorporate concrete pavements and their rehabilitation, while pushing for more road construction in the southeast from the federal government. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Wednesday commended Indian investors for pledging to invest nearly $14 billion to Nigeria, while the president also gave investors the assurance that all investing, financing and operating bottlenecks will all be broken. Well, tonight, our focus is on how to make Nigeria even more attractive for investment after the G20 summit. Babajide Ogunsowo, who's the founder of Leadership by Data and, of course, Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share an insight on Nigeria's investment landscape for eyes from these investors. Welcome, Babajide.
Good evening.
All right. When people hear investment, I mean, it has to be attractive, right? But the G20 summit has officially ended today. Investors have made promises to Nigeria. Has this been successful? Would you term it as a successful summit for President Tinubu?
Successful is a big word, Anne. Successful is a big word. But I'll let you decide if it's successful or not, because in this summit, what I can say is we've seen good news come out as the summit has ended, but we've also seen some bad news, and I'll explain that. But first, the good news. The president has gone into the summit, is left. We've heard pledges of $14 billion. For Nigeria at the moment, every penny matters. And so from that perspective, within 1 week, to have these new firms make commitments in terms of pledges and show willingness to come into Nigeria to invest, that sends good news, not just to Nigerians living in Nigeria. It also sends that spiral effect to other countries who had some cold feet with respect to investing in Nigeria. Now we have Indian investors who have said they'll come in to do some investment in power, steel, petrochemicals. Good news, $14 billion. But why do I talk about bad news? And, you know, my grandfather used to tell me that he who does not know where he's going can never be lost. With respect to this summit, yes, we've seen $14 billion pledges, but the right question is, what was the goal of the president? And that was never made public. So $14 billion, did we have a goal to get $20 billion? Was it $100 billion? Was it $200 billion? If we had a benchmark, then we will be able to determine if $14 billion and this investment summit was successful. But as at the moment, good news, $14 billion, but we never had that public goal that we were going into this summit with. Did we go into this summit to achieve $50 billion in investments? We didn't make that public. Did we want to achieve $100 billion? We didn't make that public. So the bad news is, it seems we went into this summit without any clear goal on how much we wanted to get back as investment. But the focus now is the $14 billion. So I would like us to take a look at what sectors are attracting these investors into Nigeria. And if we take a look at the sectors that seem to be attractive, we see potentially $8 billion coming from Indorama Petrochemical. They've said they see opportunities within the fertilizer space within Nigeria and the petrochemical space. We've seen Jindal Steel and Power also making commitments of $3 billion. They are looking at investments in manufacturing using steel. Another company, Skipper Sail, they are looking at investment in power, especially within the northern region. They are looking at an investment of up to $1.6 billion. And we also see potential investments, even between the Indian government and Nigerian government in the security space. So in all good news, when we look at Nigeria needs every penny at the moment, bad news in terms of what was the target going into the G20 summit.
But Judy, I mean, most of these investment pledges have been made from Indian investors. Is this a surprise?
Big surprise, Anne. Big surprise. Big surprise, especially if you look at where we're coming from in the last 5 years when it comes to investments. What I mean in specific terms is which countries in Asia historically have shown a large appetite for investing in Nigeria. And if we take a look at the countries within Asia, just an Asian focus to find out where our investment friends in Asia. The number one country, the United Arab Emirates. We'll probably get to that later to explain why the president has also flown to the UAE. In front of us are the top 5 countries in Asia that have invested in Nigeria in the last 5 years. Number one, the United Arab Emirates. In the last 5 years, $3.2 billion have come in from the UAE. Number 2, Singapore. Another $3.2 billion from Singapore. Hong Kong, number 3, $642 million. And then we have Cyprus and China in 4th and 5th position. So looking at history, India hasn't shown much interest in investments in Nigeria, looking at where most of our investments come in. But now we've seen a better handshake between the president and us, and hopefully it seems that the days ahead will surely be brighter.
But how significant is India's interest or pledge in tackling security issues in the country?
And that was a big surprise, $1 billion and into assisting Nigeria to improve its local production of weapons. And even the Chief of Defense Staff, if we take a look at his positive comments, what we've seen is since the Chief of Defense Staff and the other service chiefs have been sworn in, one thing they've really been talking about is trying to attract more investments into Nigeria being self-sufficient in local production. So his goal is that before the end of this decade, Nigeria will significantly be self-sufficient in producing light weapons and some ammunition rather than having to rely on external partners to import this weapon. So it's a good day for the Nigerian Armed Forces, it's a good day for the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, who has also made it clear that Nigeria cannot, like every other country, cannot be relying on just itself. And so this partnership will allow the Nigerian Armed Forces to achieve its security goals of peace and order. So it's a big plus. Plus.
Yes, I also agree with you. I mean, the issue of security cannot be overemphasized. But the president is now in the United Arab Emirates. What are the expectations?
So now that's big. There have been a lot of discussions on visas. There have been a lot of discussion. But my advice to the president is we shouldn't beg. Nigeria is important to every nation in the world. And Nigeria is not only the biggest economy in Africa, we are the 30th largest in the world. And so going to the UAE, it's a negotiation. It's about win-win. We mustn't go to beg. Every country in the world needs Nigeria, and Nigeria has a lot to offer. We can look at it from even our economic potentials. If we take a look at what we refer to as Nigeria's zone of economic potential, and if we take a look at that, we're talking about the president keeping his eyes on Nigeria's 10 largest economic sectors based on the report from the Bureau of Statistics, and also keeping another eye on the bottom 10 smallest sectors. Within these 20 sectors lies a lot of potential. And again, I repeat, Nigeria's top 10 largest economic sectors still offers investors, especially in the UAE, a lot of economic partnership. And if we also take a look at the growth potential sectors, which is the bottom 10 smallest sectors, a lot of potential lies. So we now have 20 sectors that investors can look at, zone of economic potential. President has landed in UAE. And what we expect again is negotiations that will lead to a win-win. The president must have his goal. Don't forget what I started with, what my grandfather told me. Okay. If you do not know where you're going, you can never be lost. We hope that the president will come back being more found than lost.
Oh, that's our prayer. Thank you, Babajide Ogunsawo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's analyst, for your important contribution on the news at 10.
The pleasure is all mine, Anne.
To other stories now, the Anglican Communion of Owerri Province has commended the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, for his commitment in improving the infrastructure in the state in the last 3.5 years as governor of Imo State. Speaking at the special Thanksgiving service by the family of the APC deputy governorship candidate Chinyere Ekomaru in Owerri, the Anglican Archbishop Owerri Province, Most Reverend David Onoha, says the newly inaugurated general hospitals in Ohaji, Egbema, and the Oguta local government areas in the state, as well as the flag-off of the dredging of the Orashi River and the upgrade of the Federal Medical Center to University Teaching Hospital under the Uzodinma administration, is worthy of commendation.
It's a colorful Sunday at the Cathedral of the Transfiguration of Our Lord Anglican Diocese of Owerri, as Christian faithful, government officials led by Governor Hope Uzodinma, APC supporters and indigents of Imo State joined the family of the APC deputy governorship candidate Chinyere Ekomaru for a special Thanksgiving service. In his message, the Anglican Archbishop Owerri, Reverend David Onoha, advises politicians in the state to shun violence and embrace peace as the November elections draw closer. He commends the governor for his giant strides in the state.
We applaud your efforts in infrastructure development and for attracting federal projects to Imo State. The prospect of a seaport in Imo State is very exciting.
The President General of Ohaneze Ndibo extols the qualities of the governor and appeals to Imo indigents his re-election bid.
Governorship is not 4 years tenure, it's 8 years tenure. Many people think it's 4 years, it's 8 years. So please don't make any mistake. It's only when somebody is bad that you terminate it in 4 years.
For the APC deputy governorship candidate in the November election, Mrs. Chinyere Ekomaru, her choice has united women across the state.
What we shall experience in Imo State going forward is unity, peaceful coexistence, and quantum leap in development.
The governor discloses the reason for choosing Chinyere Ekomaru as his deputy governorship candidate. He reiterates that his administration is doing all to deliver on its campaign promises.
The choice of Lady Chinyere is as a result of ecumenical exigencies, and it is become very necessary for gender balancing and inclusiveness in our polity.
Prayers are then offered for the governor and his running mate for victory at the November polls.
The Kaduna State Governor, Senator Obasani, has been explaining the motive behind the reduction of school fees in the state. Senator Sani says the reduction is to enable the children of the less privileged gain the education they need and maximize the opportunities that life offers them. According to him, leadership is about making life better for the led and might require some drastic changes.
Government is about service. And what is more important to us here in this part of the world is education. Education for me is key because it's the greatest leveler. If I don't do that, only the children of the rich will go to school because the rich have their children in private universities in Nigeria. Some of them are in Best University, some are in Nile University, some are schooling abroad. That means we will have a society where only the children of the rich will be educated. And I believe if we want to help our people, we have to ensure that we give and support the children of the poor to be educated because it's the greatest leveler. It's only education you can give to the children of the poor for them to be whatever they want to be and succeed in their lives. For me, so it's something that I did not even think twice doing it. Let me just say one thing to you. As a leader, sometimes what I learned is that, look, as a leader, if you don't work on one day and get angry once in a while about where you are not appreciating the level of the decay within the society. As a leader, you have no room to be just comfortable. You should always sometimes provoke yourself, because you need to always remember that you are there for service. You have to turn things around. You must make them work. So that is what a leader should think every day.
For more on this interview, please watch Newsnight tomorrow, Monday, by 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. We head to Taraba State now, where the government says it is leaving no stone unturned to revitalize the agricultural sector in the state. The Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Nicholas Oliver, gave this assurance when he represented Governor Kefas Abu at an event to hand over 4,900 bags of fertilizer to the State Palliative Committee for onward distribution to farmers in the state free of charge. Mr. Oliver adds that the state is set to introduce every modern farming technique that will enhance food security in the state.
Respite appears to have come the way of at least 49,000 farmers in Taraba State as the government provides free assorted fertilizers to the farmers to ease the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy.
And then you now sit down to plan.
The fertilizer distribution program is the latest of several interventions of the state government to ensure food security.
Again, please.
The government says it plans to go beyond fertilizer distribution to assist the farmers to ensure year-round productivity.
We have two levels of farming in the states. We have wet season and we have dry season. This ministry is working very hard, so hard, to create another level of farming season, making it 3. So you can farm during wet season. At the collapse of the wet season, you could have an interim, what we call lack season, and then the dry season proper. We are greatly blessed by God. We have great potential for agriculture, and we are doing that to ensure that we get it right.
The chairman of the state's Palliative Care Committee promises to ensure fair distribution amongst the farmers.
We shall put in a mechanism ensuring adequate distribution of that same commodity to the farmers, using the farmers themselves as tools that will enable us, that will enable equity, fairness and transparency in the distribution.
The beneficiaries are grateful for the gesture.
Our farmers will continue to support your administration to the best of our ability so that Taraba State becomes not only sustainable in food production, but will become self-reliance. We want to say this fertilizer is palliative. And palliative means something just to cushion an effect. We want the ministry to put not only a short-term plan, we need a medium and a long-term plan to sustain food security in Taraba State.
The farmers are optimistic that the gesture will go a long way to cushion the effect of the last year's flood, as well as the removal of subsidy on petrol.
Let's head to Delta State now, where the government has assured its citizens that it is ready to tackle flood situations by way of preventing and mitigating its impact on citizens in the coastal regions in the state. The Commissioner, Bureau for Special Duties, Mr. Tachiriri Terry, gave this assurance when the Flood Disaster Management Team embarked on a flood impact assessment tour of some communities along the coastal region of Koko, including Sekelewu in Warri North local government area of Delta State.
Sekelewu in Warri North local government area of Delta State is situated in a boundary between Delta and Ondo states, with most communities in the area surrounded by water, making them prone to flooding nearly every year. As part of efforts to cushion the effect of this year's flood in the state, the government, through the Bureau of Special Duties, set out to inspect flood-prone communities and also sensitize residents in the affected area of government's plan.
When una see the water they come, una go see tribe, tell our people, our women, our children, at least may they go decide when it be say it's still high small for safety. And by that time, the governor also make provision to make sure other teams go still come to protect una.
Part of the community.
It's also an opportunity for the people to reel out their expectations from the government.
So God was so kind. God heard our prayer. The water began to put small, reduce small until we breathe a bit. That is why you see this water will never submerge the house. Government should remember us, send us some relief materials. Most of our mattress that we are sleeping off before, we have been soaked by waters and so on, that because of hazard and others, we couldn't be able to make use of them. And mostly our people are starving for food. We don't have enough thing to feed our people again.
Bokoda, Apuama, Agodaba, and others are among the flood-prone communities visited by the commissioner and his team. He assures the people that the state government is working out modalities to begin the distribution of palliatives and relief materials to them.
The committee set up has also put a lot of palliative in place to assist them. And so we just came to check now and will be coming soonest with the palliative to help them up. Relief materials will certainly come.
In addition to these efforts, the state government has set up a flood disaster management committee to assess the situation and provide possible assistance by way of internally displaced persons camps and relief materials.
The Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria has issued a stern warning to the federal government, asking it to take necessary action to improve doctors' welfare and prevent a collapse in the health sector. The association's president, Professor Aminu Mohammed, who was speaking at a press conference at the association's headquarters in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, emphasized the alarming rate at which medical professionals are leaving the country. Our correspondent Sadiq Iliasu has more.
Stakeholders in the health sector and members of the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria converge in Kano to discuss the sector's challenges, which includes poor welfare and a significant brain drain of skilled professionals.
Medical education, just as clinical service delivery, is taking a big hit from the exodus of consultants from the country to greener pastures. This is in addition to the surreptitious tough encroachment, often manifesting as curriculum upgrade by allied professionals. The need to have frank discussion and innovate speedily to address these challenges cannot be overemphasized.
The Kano state government has, however, announced plans to recruit 100 medical doctors to address the gap created by the brain drain.
Presently, 643 students are already screened to be sent to various schools all over the world. Out of them, we have 100 people, 100 students that will read medicine, will read other allied courses, will read dentistry, and will be sponsored by the state. Also, we have just this week, the Hospital Management Board is given the permission to employ 100 doctors to the service of the state and to be sent immediately for postgraduate or residency training in various fields so that to come and augment the one that we have.
In a communique issued after the meeting, the association implores the federal government to take the necessary steps to prevent a collapse in the health sector.
With this number of alarming migration that is happening, you can find out that some departments are closing, or some departments are left with only 1 or 2 doctors that were supposed to have that service rendered by maybe at least 10 of them. And we are still the one taking the shot. We are the one doing this, taking these responsibilities. 5 people may leave a department, the workload is not reduced, but we are the one doing it. So people should look at, government should know that there is always a limit for patients.
The future of Nigeria's healthcare system appears to be hanging in the balance, but a swift action is imperative to preserve the sector. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have continued to make gains in their fight against drug trafficking in the country. The operatives intercepted consignments of skunk concealed in tins of tomato paste and methamphetamine hidden in used clothes meant for export to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. While the skunk and tomato paste consignment weighing 20 kilograms was intercepted on September the 8th at the Sako export shed of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, the meth shipment with a gross weight of 1.6 kilograms was seized at a courier company right here in Lagos. 399 pieces of improvised explosive devices were recovered by the NDLEA operatives from one Asana Oluwagbenga Leke along Mokwa Jeba Road on Thursday, September the 7th, and the suspect said the explosives were handed over to him at a park in Ibadan to be delivered to someone in Kaduna State. NDLEA operatives also raided the enclave of a notorious drug lord in Akala Mushin, Lagos, Abdul Rauf, also known as Nagod, where 1,101 kilograms of Ghanaian loud were recovered. 3 suspects were arrested, while the wanted kingpin remains at large. Another suspect, Onyeka Uzo, was arrested in a Demili local government area of Anambra State with 64.8 kilograms of skunk and tramadol. Another suspect, Destiny Rabo, was nabbed on Friday, September the 8th, with over 180 kilograms of opioids loaded in his Toyota Sienna bus. UK's Prime Minister The UK has made its second ever visit to Nigeria, berthing at Apapa port today. That's the UK's HMS Trent. The commander, Tim Langford, welcomed aboard the British Deputy High Commissioner, Johnny Baxter, as well as rubbed minds over activities that will take place on the ship for the next 4 days. The HMS Trent is a Batch 2 River-class offshore patrol vessel named after the River Trent. And its third, the new breed of river-class ships, fully operational and most of the time deployed to the Mediterranean to help support NATO on its international security mission. Its main mission in Nigeria will be working with the Nigerian Navy to counter piracy, anti-smuggling, provide fishery protection, border control, counter-terrorism operations, humanitarian aid, search and rescue, general patrols, and defense diplomacy.
Looking towards how we can identify potentially future solutions for countering insecurity within the Gulf of Guinea and the region. Looking at activities such as counter-piracy, counter-narcotics activity, and other illicit and illegal activity that takes place on the high seas, such as the increasing trend of things like illegal fishing and unauthorised fishing activity in individual nations' territorial waters and coastlines. But a lot of the discussion will definitely centre around counter-piracy activity. It's one of the things that I think that all nations have got a responsibility to address, and it requires all nations to work closely together to find a working solution to offset the balance of an increasing level of piracy activity on the high seas.
Nigeria is a massive country for Africa. It has the second largest economy, it has the largest population, and for all of us, for Africa and for the UK, it is critical that Nigeria is stable, is safe and is prosperous, and that's what we want to achieve. And within that, it is fantastic to see that trade between Nigeria and the UK is currently valued at £7.6 billion, and that has been increasing dramatically. And so the scope of the relationships that the UK has with Nigeria goes from things like this, goes from practical working together to activities that ensure that both our economies prosper.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria has confirmed their spot as Group A leaders after thrashing Sao Tome and Principe 6-0 in the final match of the Africa Cup of Nations qualifier played this evening at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital. But the qualifier top scorer, Victor Osimhen, who scored a hat-trick in the match, opened scoring in the 13th minute of the game. Ademola Lookman, Taiwo Awoniyi and Samuel Chukwueze were all on the score sheet for the three-time African champions. With this win now, Nigeria finished the qualifying series of 15 points from 6 matches. The Super Eagles won 5 games and lost 1. The team will now shift their attention to the 2026 World Cup qualifier with their opening game against Lesotho in Uyo on November the 13th. The FIBA's Men's World Cup now has a new champion. It's Germany, who's made history in winning the trophy in their first ever final earlier today. We have in today's final game and other stories in the world of sports.
Germany has won its first ever FIBA Basketball World Cup title by beating undermanned Serbia 83-77 in a slugfest of the two European powerhouses earlier today in Manila. The win excites Germany fans as the country becomes the first team to win a FIBA World Cup crown in their final debut since Spain in 2006. New U.S. Open champion Coco Gauff says tennis icons Serena and Venus Williams paved the way for a breakthrough after the American teenager captured her first Grand Slam title against second seed Aryna Sabalenka.
They're the reason why I have this trophy today, to be honest. They've allowed me to believe in this dream, growing up. There wasn't too many just black tennis players dominating the sport. It was literally, at that time when I was younger, it was just them that I can remember. And obviously more came because of their legacy, so it made the dream more believable. But all the things that they had to go through, they made it easier for someone like me to do this. You look back at the history with the Indian Wells, with Serena, all she had to go through, Venus fighting for equal pay. It's just it's crazy, and it's an honor to be in that kind of lineup and as them.
With the win, 6th seed Gauff becomes the first American to win a U.S. Open singles title since Sloane Stephens in 2017. Germany today parted ways with their coach Hansi Flick a day after their 4-1 home loss to Japan in a friendly match with the 4-time world champions struggling for form ahead of the Euro 2024 tournament on home soil. And Jorge Martins further closed the gap on championship leader Francesco Bagnaia after cruising to victory in Sunday's San Marino MotoGP to complete a perfect weekend at Misano. The Spaniard is now 36 points behind world champion Bagnaia after claiming the 3rd Grand Prix win of his career.
Spanish Football Federation chief Luis Rubiales engulfed in the scandal over allegations he gave an unsolicited kiss to a player on the Women's World Cup team just last month, says he will resign from his position as president. He released a statement saying he had submitted his resignation letter to the Federation acting president, Pedro Rocha. The 46-year-old has also resigned from his position as vice president of UEFA's executive committee. And outside our shores, emergency services in Morocco are racing to save as many people as they can trapped under the rubble by Friday's earthquake that has killed more than 2,000 people. The quake is considered the deadliest in over 60 years. The 6.8 magnitude tremor collapsed homes, blocked roads, swayed buildings as far away as the country's northern coast.
Moroccans have been trying to make sense of the disaster that has befallen many families affected by the quake that struck on Friday. Families slept on the streets Saturday night and Sunday morning, fearing their homes are no longer safe to return to. Although Marrakesh, the country's fourth largest city, was badly hit by the quake, many across the country spent the night outdoors on Friday after. The popular tourist attraction for Moroccans and foreigners was damaged in the earthquake. The damage caused was more visible on Sunday. Many buildings showed signs of heavy damage caused by the quake. For some residents, they'd lost everything due to the quake. Local authorities have mobilized all necessary means to carry on rescue. Apart from Marrakesh, the quake was felt in cities across the country, including Rabat, the country's largest city, Casablanca, as well as coastal cities like Agadir and Essaouira, in panic among people. Rescue workers are still working to reach people trapped under the rubble, while the death toll has been on a steady rise. Local media showed footage of rescuers and the military trying to shift heavy debris in the village of Moulay Ibrahim, 40 kilometers south of Marrakesh. Early on Sunday, rescuers pulled another body from the rubble in Amis Amis. On Saturday, King Mohammed VI chaired a working session at the Royal Palace in Rabat. He has declared 3 days of mourning and has called for prayers for the dead to be held at mosques across the country. The government and civil society organizations have sent food to the town of Moulay. People were seen unloading packs of food and water from trucks to be stored and later distributed to residents. International help has also come from Turkey, which says it is ready to help the victims.
Chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, says that Ukraine has little more than 30 days left of fighting before the weather hinders its counteroffensive. He was making a comment on the BBC program today, where he said that colder conditions would make it much harder for Ukraine to maneuver. He admitted the offensive had gone more slowly than expected, but says that there is still heavy fighting going on. The Ukrainians are still plugging away with steady progress. General Milley said it was too early to say whether the counteroffensive had failed, but then he said that Ukraine was progressing at a very steady pace through the Russian front lines. And the main news again. U.S. President Joe Biden has commended President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his effort at preserving the rule of law and democracy in Niger Republic. Mr. Biden, who was speaking when he met President Tinubu on the sidelines of the G20 summit in India, also reaffirmed his commitment to the long-standing relationship between the United States and Nigeria. Also today, Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara vowed to capture killers of a divisional police officer, Bako Abashim, in the state. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week. I am Anne Nwawadu.